Okay, the recording started. We're going to do topic 12. And the whole idea again is that, look for the yellow highlights, and that's going to give you an idea where to focus for the test number 3. And I'm going to give you more information about test number 3, just in the next slide here. And then, and then it should also help you do participation 12A and 12B. So I put in some extra material in there to help you out. And also, if you go to Blackboard under weekly commentary and you go under week 12, you'll find a document that shows you how to do a PESTLE for going global. And that way, you'll be able to have a little more information for your 12B participation. And again, it's all group team participation, and it's all set up to upload to be able to, only one person needs to upload your team output to be able to get into Blackboard so I can have a look at it and mark it. Okay, so any questions before I get started at all? You can unmute and ask a question.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Okay, hold it. I just got to turn up my volume because I can't hear you. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Rhea.
I'm Rhea. Sir, I asked you, I think I emailed you 3 days or 4 days ago about the examination coverage. Is it 9 to 12?
It's 9 to 12. That's right. Yes.
So we are leaving 13, chapter 13.
We're going to cover chapter 13, but there's nothing on the test. And it's sort of an additional portion. And I think it would be really good to listen to it because it's really kind of the knowledge of the future, about artificial intelligence and whatever. So I'm looking forward to spend that time with you. So the lecture might be a little shorter, but again, there's a participation activity to do on topic 13, and I'll be giving you information to be able to help you put that together.
Yes, sir. In connection with that, sir, I'm trying to submit our assignment for the topic 13A, but there is no submission button. I emailed you a while ago, I think yesterday, and I received your reply just now about that, saying that there is a submission button, but as of this time, there is no submission button. I know that some of my classmates have the same issues.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to put a few submission uploads for assignments in the assessment portion of Blackboard for those people who can't get in, and then I'll make an announcement about that. I'm going to do that tomorrow after I do webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So after my webinar, I'll look into that and then send a general announcement through Blackboard. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. And next one, sir, how about the 13B instructions? We really can figure out how to do the 13B assignment.
Okay, so that's I'll make a note and make sure that that there is some instructions, and then I'll put those out on Blackboard as well. Okay, thanks for that input. That's great.
Okay. And lastly, sir, I want to ask, I checked the grades yesterday, and I saw that there are activities just like the pre-assessment that dated May 3, test 1 dated May 15, post-assessment dated June 19, and test 3 dated June 14. They are not supposed to be on that. It's not supposed to be there, but I think it will affect our average.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. So, I came on new on this, and I will make sure that everything's, what needs to be counted for marks will be counted for marks, and what doesn't will be excluded. So, I should have that ready, probably in the next week or so. So that's coming. But thank you for that input. I'll make sure that I cover that off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great, Rhea. Thank you for all that information. I appreciate it. Okay, so the registrar kind of set up the the last test and put in the schedule. So you can see on this first slide where are we here? Okay, so for your section, the test will be at 7 o'clock and be online on December the 15th, Friday. Okay, so that's where test number 3 is. And again, it's going to cover topics 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's where that's going to be. And I'm going to send you, a final instruction, well before the test so you can see what's going on. But I ask you all, please check that your lockdown browser is up to date and check that your web camera is working because there's, there'll be a barrage of problems that come to me, and I'm going to be online with you. And you can send me email to my RDP email, not through Blackboard, and help you if there's any other issues that I can help you with. Okay. All right. Okay. So, oh, and one other thing, I just sent an announcement out, and what I found out, I guess, through the classes is that some people really just started, their project, so they didn't have enough information about working with the team. So that I extended the due date for the individual project, which is where 10% of your, excuse me, of your mark, and that's due December 6th, the same as with the team project, which is due December 6th. That'll give you a little more time, to fill that out and work that through. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So. We're going to talk about a few things, and one is about the going global piece, and then the second section of the webinar is about ethics issues and corporate social responsibility. And what I can say about CSR, corporate social responsibility, is that it's prominent now. 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it was almost unheard of, but now it's kind of getting very pervasive. And what's driving it is consumer awareness. Like consumers are now dictating, what organizations should do. And like in terms of like even buying stocks, a lot of people will just buy ethical stocks, and ethical stocks, the companies that sell those stocks or that are on the market are companies that are true advocates of CSR and have concrete strategic plans that show, how they're worried about triple bottom line in terms of, people, planet, and profit. So that's coming, and I'll cover that off. And the reason why it's sort of dear to my heart, I spent 18 to 20 years on boards. Several boards, like 8 boards in total, and I've been involved in those movements, especially in the credit union area in Alberta here, and it's near and dear to my heart, and I know that this is the new way of doing business, and I'm going to talk to you about being a good ancestor as we go there, but I'm going to start with going global and give you some information. And a lot of this stuff, is related to 12A, and also, I guess, catch the highlights because that's going to give you a sense where you could be, focusing more of your study on. And again, the prime document, amongst the topics is the slide deck that Professor Powers prepared that's listed there. That's the key one. Watching the videos will really get you into the detail and give you a really good sense of what these topics are all about. And then what I'm doing is I'm giving you a sense of where to focus. Okay. All right. So reasons for going global. There's proactive reasons and there's reactive reasons. And proactive is about, sometimes organizations want to exploit the factor cost differences across the countries. Because maybe certain offerings, be it products or services, are much more expensive in a foreign market, and a particular company says, hey, if we go out into that foreign market, we'll probably be very successful. Or they have this unique product that is worldwide in demand, be it a service or a manufactured product, and they know that they can really grow their business to do that. And in some cases, they have a technological advantage that they want to exercise. And again, I take that back to what I call core competencies. And core competencies develop competitive advantage. It's a pillar of competitive advantage. So that will grow. Economies of scale is really a big deal. And what we find is, especially in North America, there may be manufacturing operations that are at maybe 75% manufacturing capacity, and those assets are just sitting there. And they say, hey, you know what? If we could export, well, then we can push that 75% to 85, 90, 95% of manufacturing capacity. And when you do that, that leads right into economies of scale, right? It gets their unit costs down. It makes them more competitive and brings more profit and everything else that comes along with that. So that's key. And then global trading is growing, and developing countries are getting bigger, stronger, and accumulating more wealth. So there's growing foreign markets. Sometimes you have this exclusive information that you have. Other times, what it is that you're in your own domestic market, you're being competed against with foreign companies that are coming in, and you don't have to go very far. Just go to the supermarket, outside of the Barrie campus, or go to the supermarket outside of, in Red Deer, and take a look at groceries, and you'll see that the percentage of foreign goods are there. So local producers have to understand, how can we be more competitive? Well, if we go out and going global, well then we'll learn what they have as an advantage, and we'll bring in stronger technology, because you can source different technologies around the world or whatever, and we'll get more stronger and better, and grow our business, and then be a company to rival with. So, but then there's other reactive reasons. So I talked about competitive pressures, where domestic organizations are being outmaneuvered, and they have to do that. I talked about overcapacity. And then also, if you take a look at product life cycle, and when I say product life cycle, I mean service life cycle as well. And in some cases, you may have saturated the market, with what you're producing, and you feel that you're at the end of your product life cycle, and you'll find that there's other countries around the world that don't even have that product. They don't even know that it exists, and that you could improve their lives doing that. So that's key. So you can get out there and sort of not reinvent, but grow your market out there, and take advantage of your product or service offering that's not there, and continually grow. And you put all your investment in that product already, so there's room to make a lot of profit. Okay, so that's kind of all the reasons, or most of them. But why do organizations globalize? Well, of course, they want to expand their global market share. They want to restructure their value chain on a global scale, because if you take a look at it, that supply chains in today's world, they're global, and you want to be able to take advantage of those supply chains and get the best out of them, so that you can use parts of it domestically, and you can use parts of it on a foreign global process. So that's key. And sometimes organizations say, hey, it's our ultimate goal. We want to we want to be out there. We want to be a global company, and they do that. And also, I just want to make the distinction too. There's some organizations that they're growing domestically, and they see what capability that they have, and they it's an organic growth, and then it's almost like the next logical step to go out and go global. But in some cases, there's this term called born global, and some companies just come out of the blue, and a lot of times it's related to digital type projects, because there's no big manufacturing asset requirement to be able to produce that, and within weeks they can be on the global market, and they're keying into, the global segment community. And those are people all over the world that understand, global products. And so that, you're not starting right from scratch. And the biggest advantage of globalizing is that, if you're a strictly a global operator, you can standardize because people understand, like Apple Apple customers understand that the iPhone is the iPhone, and it has everything they need wherever they are. So what, Apple can standardize that product and sell that same product in every store across the world, right? So that's some of the key things that are going on there. And then what changes do global companies have to face? Well, market size. So markets are growing, some markets are shrinking. The complexity of foreign markets, and when I mean complexity, you go down to PESEL. There's political complexity. There's, in terms of legal matters, there's different places where those, say, developing countries are in terms of what kind of technologies they have to be able to adopt your offering. Buyers are changing, new entrants are coming in, and then all kinds of rivalry. And based on that, I'm almost talking about the diamond model that Michael Porter has, and I'm going to introduce that to you tonight. It's not part of the test, but I wanted you to be aware of it. Okay, so decisions to go global. So, there's ways to export. You got to do the industry analysis. You got to, assess your own company capabilities, and really what drives your value proposition, and what kind of core competencies that you have that shape your competitive advantage. There's marketing issues. You got to figure out, which markets are which to be able to want to go into. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Legal and political situation. Well, there's different legal frameworks, different parts of the world, and it's not uncommon to hear of a company that, unbeknownst to them, they've violated the laws in a certain country, and there's all these legal implications that they have to face. So, be prepared to understand all this before you go in. And then currency exchange is crucial because, especially if you have a developing country that has high inflation and consistently high inflation, the value of your assets, the value of your product will keep decreasing, as currency exchange, the exchange rates change. You may find a disadvantage in your pricing. There's all those things that you need to worry about, and you need to learn how to hedge against currency fluctuations and all those things. And then sources of financing, are changing, especially in the last 10 years. Say many years ago, it was all just international banks, and they had the market, covered. You couldn't do any business financially if you needed financial, assistance. You had to go to those people. In today's world, there's all kinds of outlets for new types of financing to go global. Be it even small financiers or whatever. So the mechanisms are there today, and the whole idea is to discover, where they are to be able to get your financing costs down as low as possible. But here's some of the key decisions. What type of organization do you want to put together for that global project? How do you select the best markets? What level of involvement will that be? And the level of involvement is on two levels. One is financial. How much equity do you want to put into that project? And what's the risk involved? And then how much of your own resources do you want to put in there? And do you have the core competencies to drive that? And will you have to outsource to be able to make this happen? And one key thing is how to get paid. And how to get paid could be difficult because sometimes you don't get paid. And in this country, we have the Business Development Bank and that BDC of Canada that will help you and show you how to secure the payments that you need to come in to be able to sell your assets in a secure manner. And then the whole thing about global etiquette and travel. And I'll say one thing that I learned in this, in this kind of business is that you can go through all the primary and secondary research that you possibly can. But if you're going to invest your money in a particular country that you've never stepped into, there's things that you won't learn unless you go there. You go there and you walk down the streets and in your your market territory that you want to get into, and you talk to people and you find helpful agents that you can trust to help to guide you on how to work with the government, how to work with the community, how to work with sort of the elders of that particular community, be it a province or be it a region or whatever. So there's a lot of things to know, and you just don't jump into this. You've got to be really prepared, because you could lose your whole investment in a short period of time. So that's what you have to worry about. Okay, so a little bit of highlight here: global strategy. And what's key about this slide is that I want you to understand the types of players. How does a multinational corporation, how does it differ from a transnational? And so what I've done is I've added some definitions in this slide presentation that I'd like you to kind of study to make sure that you can cover off what's going on in the slide deck and right in topic 12. Okay, so that's where that is. And the thing is too is that I talked about the various efforts. You can in terms of investment, you can have a minimal global investment, or you could be all in. And you necessarily, when you're looking at foreign direct investment, the time to go all in is when you have the confidence that you're going to be able to be successful in that particular country, in that particular country's industry, and in the business that you're in. And the thing is, there's other reasons for going global, and one is global sourcing. So I'm sure that Elon Musk must have some kind of business, in the countries, where they're mining lithium, because lithium's, a key raw material to batteries for the electric vehicles. So you'd want to be really tied into some strategic raw materials, and one way to do that is to have a global presence, so that you have those people, lock into those processes, lock into the supply, and also lock into technological innovation that's not happening in your own country. And there's some great technological innovations throughout the world. And if you're there, you can discover them, and you can learn how to adapt them, and you could, bring that into your organization. So there's a lot there. Okay, so here we go. From minimal global investment, maybe you're just trying to source some key raw materials, but then you take a look at taking the next step and maybe exporting and importing, from that piece. And again, exporting and importing doesn't take, given when you first get into it, you can find a third party to buy your products and go out and sell them as a form of export. So you have no risks there, and you're selling to that. And then say you learn the business a little better, then you say, oh, you know what? I'm tired of paying commissions for that third party. So I know the market enough where I will, my organization will sell directly. All right, and that goes really well. And then you're finding out, where how your markets are evolving in that foreign country, and you say, I'm at the point now where I understand the business well enough, and I'm confident that I can succeed. So maybe now I'm going to invest in a warehouse, and then do my own distribution, and then do my own logistics. And, okay, so that's how you kind of, and then as you're doing more and more yourself, what are you doing? You're anchoring more and more investment into your project to the point where now you look at a foreign subsidiary, and then that foreign subsidiary will be owned and operated by you as a parent company in your own country. And they will invest in, building facilities to manufacture, and building, their whole supply chain to be able to get the customers. So that's a continuum. But I'm going to talk to you about, you walk before you run, and I think that's the next slide. All right. Oh no, it isn't. But anyways, here's where you're going. So normally companies start in their domestic market, and they build their value proposition so it's very strong, and they really understand their business. And then they may get into the pre-export stage, and that's what I was talking about, is you may have an agent that buys from you directly, so you're not even, you don't even have inventory at risk, and goes out. And then you start getting involved, and then you get involved actively, and then you have committed involvement. So those are the stages of that. And then there's different approaches. This is not on the test, but I wanted to give you a sense of, it's not a simple, a simple venture. So here's one axis where you can see what this is saying. This particular framework is that, if you're gonna venture out in a foreign operation, well, you're best to venture out into a country that's quite similar, and you have the same, you have the same business norms, you have the same legal norms and whatever. So it makes it easy to be able to adapt to that. And then as you get more and more confidence and the organization gets stronger, well, then you can venture out into areas that maybe they're not as similar, and then go global that way. So that's one axis. The other axis is that who's going to do it for you. So you may have other firms, like I said, you may have an agent that's actually just taking your products and selling them abroad. Or, now you're at the point where you're in the country, but you'll have another firm that will handle, your distribution contracts, to the point where you get to, the end of this and you're handling everything. And then the other one is just mode of operations. So, and that's, well, you start doing, an export-import business, and then maybe you might, license and find a distribution agents, and then you might at some point in time, because you know the markets and you've established yourself and you have a success rate, well, then you start producing your own products right in that foreign country. And then this other axis is, well, maybe you just start with one country, and then you go to several, and then many, and then you're full-blown global on the outside of this piece. So that's what I wanted to tell you about this. But here's the things you need to worry about: cultural difference, and then administrative and political distance. And what that means is, can you run that business out of Mumbai, fully outside in other countries, or do you need people in each continent to be there to be able to manage what's going on in that particular continent? And then, what are the implications on the types of legislative and political aspects there are that you need to align with when you're out there? Then just straight geographic distance, and I'm going to talk about regional organizations or regional trading areas versus global trading areas, and that's another step that you should entertain before you decide if you're going to go full global. And then the economic distance, in terms of, are you familiar with the currency there? Are you familiar with how credit is run? Are you familiar with all those things? And then the types of strategies. Well, I talked about going global, and then I talked about born global, and then there's a multi-domestic strategy, so that you can go into different areas. And then the transnational strategy is where all of a sudden now you have you're not concentrated. You've got different operations that do their own thing, but now they act as a virtual operation coming together. So, and that's where that is. Okay, so I just want to introduce you to Porter's Diamond Model. It's not part of the curriculum, but I think it's really important. And where you need to start there is you need to look at be really familiar with Porter's 5 Forces model. And again, Porter's 5 Forces model is just a great model to help you understand the competitive roadmap of what's going on. And then if you understand that quite well, then going to the next step in the diamond model in terms of determinants of a national advantage going global, well, then you're going to learn a lot more. And so that here, you have the firm strategy, structure, and the rivalry. What are the demands, conditions in those other countries? What are the related supporting industries, which is key, because sometimes, you want to bring your product into a particular nation, and there's no industry there to support, to do service, or there's no industry where you could get parts, or those kind of things. You got to understand that. And then the factor conditions, which are key, in terms of what about capabilities in the organization that you will have in that foreign land, and then can you manage that? What are the knowledge resources like? How adaptable are you from your national culture, including with your corporate culture, and then how does that align with the national culture and the corporate culture in the foreign area that you want to enter? And then time zone advantages. I mean, so to take a look at that, and then just the call center business. They have this follow the sun, so that they have call centers in each time zone, and then they're 24/7, right? So those are the kind of things that you need to look at. Not going to mention this too much, but I just wanted to show you that there's the 2x2 sort of new products and new customers versus old products and old customers as a marketing 2x2 matrix. Now you're looking at this from an international perspective, in terms of now this is markets instead of customers, and this is overall products. So that's the way to look at it. Some of the common entry market modes, here they are: exporting, licensing, strategic alliances. What a greenfield investment is that say that I'm in the I'm into the complex machinery producing industry, and I know that Germany is it's known for that, so that's a great market to get into. So what I will do then, as a company, I will go in and I will invest in building a brand new manufacturing facility. That's a greenfield investment, right? And then M&As is mergers and acquisitions, and that's one way. That there are two phases of growth. One is organic growth, where you grow your company, a little bit at a time, bringing in resources and making it happen. And then the other one is through mergers and acquisitions, where you bring in parts of capability to be able to get to the master capability that you need to be able to be strong in a global environment. Okay, so here they are again. So, you can start with direct exporting, you can do indirect exporting, you can do a joint venture, you can do a strategic alliance, or you just go in all in and do direct foreign investment. And those are some of the strategies. Okay, and you can see that this is important because there's a second slide there. Don't want to talk about this one, but something to understand is that, there's this mantra, and it's all about think global, act local. Because there's this tension between being a global organization and you manage standards, and sometimes, be it cultural gaps, be it technological gaps, the countries you want to go in just don't have the means to be able to get across that and get your products. Okay, so you could think global, you could set up those standards, but then now where the other side is responsiveness. How can you be responsive in those new markets that you want to go into? And so there's always that tension, and the more that you can standardize globally, the better you can be at getting to economies of scale and get your unit cost down. But the more that you standardize, the least that you're going to be able to be responsive to the local market. And it really comes to a head in certain industries, like in the health industry. To be able to standardize, say, health procedures and go into a foreign country that has a different culture, it ain't going to happen. So, you know, you need to understand the cultural differences in that particular industry and in area you're in. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. Think global, act local, right? Okay. And so now I wanted to give you a sense of, you know, how you kind of start. And, you know, you start by exporting and then licensing. You know, licensing is that, you know, Microsoft say, you know, they will license their 360 to a German company that has full distribution rights to Germany, and so that they don't have to put their inventory or their support in that, you know, so they get a little bit off the top, but less risk, less equity involved. And then franchising. So, you know, McDonald's is a good example. I mean, they're in many countries and over the world, you know, so it's more of a contractual basis. Now you start getting into, you know, a strategic alliance, and sometimes it's non-equity based. So it's two companies that have this synergy, you know, between them, and you may be a company in your home market and see an organization in that foreign market, and you know that if you coupled with them, you could do better in your home market, you could do better in their market. And again, you just run like a virtual company, but there's no equity involved. Other types of strategic alliances, or what they call consortiums or whatever, you may find one one company that wants to make sure that the strategy has full, they have control over that strategy. So what they'll do is they'll invest some equity into those companies. So they may own 10 or 25% of each other's partners, because now they can call the shots, basically, is what they can do. So that's the piece around, you know, and that's what they call cross-shareholding agreements. Sometimes it's just a contractual agreement. And then you get into joint ventures, and you can see that, you know, like Toyota and General Motors, you know, had a joint venture in California where they were producing a car. And why? For different advantages. So Toyota wanted to understand the American market and get into that American market, and General Motors wanted to understand why Toyota was so prolific around their quality, their total quality management, and how that really helped them, you know, produce quality vehicles and generate a lot of profit. Right, so that was a mutual thing. They produced the Saturn and a few other cars that lasted, I don't know, about 10 years. But that's a type of joint venture that can come together. And then a wholly owned subsidiary. So that's where one organization just will go into another country and set up shop as a fully owned subsidiary. Maybe sometimes it may be done through an acquisition or that kind of thing. But then, you know, it's being controlled and monitored, and the profit is coming back in to the the parent company in the home nation. Okay, so that's where that is. So again, it's all this walk before you run. You don't want to jump in all the way, because you may not know the lay of the land and suffer from it. Okay, so here's just a table. Just to help you. So you can see, you know, when it comes to equity arrangements, these are the kind of things that happen. When it's non-equity arrangements, these are the things that kind of happen, and you know, that will kind of put it together. This is a similar drawing, and so you can see that, you know, when you're this right-hand side of this figure, you know, from a licensing point of view, you know, you don't have very much equity into this. But now, if you have a wholly owned subsidiary, and you're actually selling your software in a foreign market, well, then you've invested highly, and that has a greater degree of ownership. And you can see that, you know, there's tighter control here. Look at that legend. Here, there's medium control when you're in a joint venture equity alliance. And then on this side of the fence here, you know, it's pretty little control. So that's how to understand that. Here's a little more information about importing and exporting, international licensing, international franchising, international strategic alliance and joint ventures, and direct investment. I'd recommend that you kind of read this slide to really get versed in this. Okay, so a little more of highlighting here to show you, you know, I want you to kind of go through the whole slide deck and the information that's in topic 12 and really focus in on what's exporting all about. And then along with how to compare. Well, how does that compare with, licensing? How does that compare with franchising? And that will give you a better insights as to how to, cover that, the test material and everything else. Again, this is another informational slide to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each types of investment, in pieces. What a turnkey project is. There's a premier engineering firm in Canada called SNC Lavalin, and what they're an engineering firm. So they would go into, say, a country like Libya and say, oh, you need a gas-driven electric power plant? We will build that for you. So they go in and they do all the logistics to get that power plant built. And then, they accumulate all the materials, they handle everything. And then what they do is they take on Libyan people, they train them how to run the plant. And then at that point in time, they say to the government, here's the bill, all right? So that's turnkey. You're just putting it all together and then you hand it over. Okay, so that's where that piece is. Okay. All right. Okay, so again, when you talked about how to go global, you can see that I've highlighted transnational organization. Really understand what this is all about. An international company which artificial geographical barriers are eliminated. So there's a lot of transnational organizations that have larger balance sheets than some countries. And what that means is they're very, very powerful, and they really can, negotiate unbalanced concessions, because they'll bring in economic development capabilities to developing nations. So they're very powerful, and you need to understand that, and you need to understand the implications of that, of why some people are saying no, global trading is just exploitation. Versus no, the economists say global trading is the best thing that we've ever done because the whole world benefits from trade, through comparative advantage that builds quality of life and health and wealth and education, for the betterment of the world. So, that's what you kind of get into. But here's some things that I want you to kind of review to know that you're well up to speed on that. So what is a multinational corporation? It's centralized management structure organization. You can read on, and here's where a multinational will own, in this case, company B, a wholly owned subsidiary. In some cases, we'll have an equity arrangement and a partly owned subsidiary, and then a lower one. So the parent company as this multinational would be maybe stationed in India or stationed in the Philippines, and they will be that would be their home country, and they may own a wholly owned subsidiary in the USA. So wanted you to get a better idea of what a foreign subsidiary is all about. So really, read this piece, and again, to know what the principles are around what a foreign subsidiary is. Operates in one country, partially or wholly owned by a parent company based in another country, also known as a daughter company. Foreign subsidiary is a separate legal entity that must comply with the local jurisdictions in tax and employment laws. So that's really giving you a whole sense of what this global trading is all about. When you get into a foreign direct investment, you better understand, all the factors in that country, that foreign country, that will have an impact on you. So that's key. Okay, types of global organizations. So now I've kind of further defined this transnational corporation, spread out their operations in many countries to sustain high levels of local responsiveness. Okay, remember I told you there's the global standardization piece, and then there's the responsiveness piece. And in different industries, in different businesses, the amount of responsiveness and the amount of standardization is metered as optimum to be able to get the best out of the most success out of that particular market area. So that's key. Okay, just wanted to talk about regional trade alliances a little bit. And this is another walk before you run. So if you take a look at where Walmart was before it went into Mexico. It was just, in the US basically, all right? So it went into Mexico, not only to grow, but unbeknownst to them, they didn't realize that Mexico was tied into a regional trading area and had many partners. And that's how Walmart was able to grow through that regional trade alliance. And so one of the key, relationships is that regional organization or regional areas of trade are close by, right? Which means less shipping costs, less, everything's less because it's close by. And there's a arrangement. So if the distance goes up 1%, the trade will go down by 1%. I mean, that's a pretty revealing relationship. And it turns out that in some regional trading alliances, some companies and countries are just, they're just happy with that. And they're doing so well in that regional trading arrangement that they don't even want to go global. Others see it as a stepping stone. So you got to understand that. Okay, so that gives you, some of the information to be able to identify the impact of globalization on Tim Hortons. But again, I want to remind you that, when you go to the Blackboard in terms of, weekly commentary and you go to week 12, I've got a document there. It's a PDF that you can draw from, and it's got a checklist of things to look for when you're doing a pestle to be able to identify impact of globalization on Tim Hortons. So that'll help you do that. Okay. And what are you doing? Well, you got to start with this environmental scan, which the pestle is part of. But, there's different types of scanning strategies. You don't have to know this for the test. But also you got to understand who you are. What's your baseline? What are your internal factors? Why are you successful? Where are your discrepancies? Where are your vulnerabilities and those kind of things? And then you perceive this environmental change, and then you make this strategic change on, where are you now? Where do you want to be? How do you get there? Right? That's how that works. So have a look at these particular pieces because it points you in the direction of, what are some of those physical and social factors of the operating environment when it comes to, global trading or international business. Economic forces, cultural factors, geographical influences. What are the competitive factors? Major advantage in price or innovation and those kind of things. We talked about it, but this kind of summarizes, everything that we talked about so far. Here's another one in terms of political and legal forces, what to look for. So those are things that I want you to take care of. Okay. So what I wanted you to see as well is that, what about foreign availability? Like, if you, so in past decades, a number of participants in international trade field has grown rapidly. And so that you may find, a lot of foreign availability in certain countries. So what I'm saying is that when you look at screening which countries you're going to go in, it's not based on, hey, I spent a holiday there and I think it's great. You compare and you look at, what are the critical success factors of your organization and how do they align and how do they align and compare across, several countries that you think that you could be part of. So that's key. And look from that. So you got to look at the political risk, and there's various types of different political risks. Again, this is just a checklist to help you through. And here's some classes and characteristics of political risks. So it's something that you can take with you even when you leave this. But here's one. All right, expropriation. So you may go into a country, and you'll do a great amount of foreign direct investment, and say that you want to manufacture cars. Well, the government may change its ideology based on a new party getting in, and that new party says we want to nationalize your business. And what they'll do is they'll tell you how much they're going to pay for it, and then they send you along. And there was one case that I read in the literature that there was a car manufacturing company that went into this sort of suspected foreign country that could, this could happen. And what did they do is that they built the assembly such that they kept some key critical components and modules that were manufactured in their home country. So if for some reason that the government wanted to expropriate that, they couldn't run the actual assembly plant because they didn't have all the capabilities and components that could come in that, through that specific arrangement. So it protected them against that. So those are the kind of things that you need to be conscious of. Okay. So here's some things about common risk faced by most businesses operating abroad. Shortage of foreign currency, dealing with exchange controls. That's really key because if you're not hedging against some currency, sometimes it could be very detrimental financially. Prolonged negotiations with government officials, and then tariffs that you have to deal with, and sometimes foreign organizations have different custom, let's say, thresholds to meet, only to kind of discourage, say, imports into their country. So you got to know the lay of the land. You got to have a good agent to be able to help you, understand what's going on there, understand the tax codes, all those things. So I'm just going to skip through this stuff, but I wanted you to be aware of, there's different governmental, laws that are put into a place. So there's two major legal systems popular worldwide. Common law based, that's based on tradition, depends less on statutes, so it's sort of based on precedents, and then code law, based on a comprehensive set of written statutes and those things. Canada itself, has basically common law in all the provinces except Quebec, right? So it has two, and why? Because Quebec was founded by France. And and they had they had the code law from France, and then the rest of the country was under the British rule, and so that they inherited common law. So it's all over the place. So code law is known as well as civil law, right? And then you can see if you're looking at your first foray into going global. Well, then you certainly want to pick, maybe the right kind of legal system, because the ins and outs, and then you'll be far more protected from any kind of legal perils. Okay, and one other thing is to understand now that there's two basic views. There's the rule of law, which is in most of the world, and then the rule of man, and the rule, that this is. This is, in an autocratic regime, and the leader of that autocratic regime may change his or her mind, and then all of a sudden what you're doing is illegal. So those are the kind of things that you need to worry about. So I've got a little bit about that, and then you're going to go through your PESTLE to do that, and a little more information on what's going on there. But so now I want to just focus on ethics and corporate social responsibility. And again, just be aware of where I've highlighted in yellow to be able to know where to focus. But here, this is basically in today's situation to understand, from a high level, what is it? Why are we worrying about that? Well, globalization is changing the way countries behave internally because of the cross pollination, say, of ideas and ideologies and all those things. And then, what you as new leaders need to really understand is, how can you make sure that, our countries are still in business, in the next generation. And you do that through ethical responsibility and social responsibility. I keep on bringing you back to, triple bottom line. That's so important in today's world, and which implies sustainability. And then the age of technology and where we're going with, especially with artificial intelligence and robotics. Think of what's going to happen to the the low-level skilled worker in the next generation. There's going to be a lot of strife, a lot of adjustment. So get ready for that. Okay, so just from the straight, Peter Drucker, management approach of planning, organizing, leading, controlling, just take a look at how this affects this triple bottom line. It's throughout. And so that you should be, stepping back from, your immediate duties and say, where are we going with this and how can we create, a better planet? And we need to do that. And, from a sustainability point of view, by 2050, we're going to need 2 Earths to produce, what we need in terms of raw materials and whatever, to be able to keep at the same level of production that we're at. But guess what? We only have 1 Earth, so we got to figure this out. And that's why sustainability is just so happen. And again, I think by 2035 or whatever, there's going to be like 12 million displaced people because of flooding on coastal areas because of climate change. Right. So those are the kind of things that are coming your way that you're going to have to adapt to. All right. And so here's some of the categories. You don't have to know everything specific about that, but know that, hey, there's these areas that are really important. Discrimination, workplace health and safety, which is really key, especially in North America, because now it's getting into legal territory quite a bit. Whistleblowing, how there's a lot to be, it's still not accepted. Whistleblowers still get penalized in some cases. How can we make that better? Because it's for the betterment of transparency and accountability. If we have whistleblowers, right? Ethical accounting practices, corporate espionage and non-disclosures, technology and privacy, nepotism and favoritism. I mean, there's certain things that go on, even in the governments, where people will be put in a role because they know somebody, and then environmental responsibility, all tied into the triple bottom line. But you need to understand as well that there's several different kinds of ethical systems, and some are more prevalent in certain nations than others. And so that's another insight that you need to be aware of. And then, let me just go through this. So, universalism, all people should uphold certain values. Okay, but to what standard? Egoism, that's where acceptable behavior is that which maximizes the benefit for the individual. And, that's more prevalent in North America than it is, in the eastern part of the world, where the greater good of the population is at stake, and there's respect involved, and it's how we work, how we work together to be able to get things done instead of rewarding individual initiative kind of thing. And then utilitarianism, greatest good for the greatest number. Well, that doesn't always work, because you might be doing, the things to get you to the good for the greatest number may be really bad. And so that you need a standard to be able to grasp, when you can do this and when you shouldn't be doing it. And then relativism, and that's ethics, is defined by opinions and behaviors of relevant people. So, you've heard this expression, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Well, it's not quite that easy when it comes to understanding corporate behavior. So you look at SNC Lavalin, they went into Libya, they bribed their way into getting the business, which is illegal in Canada, and so that they weren't carrying out the corporate values that were expected in their home country, and they thought they could do this because they were in a different country, and that's how things got done. Well, it doesn't work that way, and you got to understand that. Okay, so again, lots of highlighting here, so really kind of get a view on what's going on there, and then understand these examples, just so that you'll really get a sense of, what these ethical issues are all about. And then here's how they rate. So you can see conflict of interest is alive and well, and there's always, this going on within a supply chain, in terms of partners having maybe outside interests that don't really align with the overall supply chain. Those are the kind of things that you need to worry about. Abusive behavior. So, okay, so you're a great leader and you've got 2 managers that report to you, and they're abusive managers. Are you going to let that happen? I don't think so, right? So, you've got to model the behavior and understand, what kind of ethical issues are at stake and how to deal with them. And then violations in health and safety, and you can see that corruption is still around, and discrimination is everywhere, and then sexual harassment, it's been highlighted in North America a lot more because of the of the movements that have kind of brought it to the forefront, and I think we're making progress in society with that, but it's always there. So if you're going to be you're going to be a good leader, you better understand those key areas that you can get pulled into, and if the more that you have insights about it, the more you'll be able to come up with better solutions. Okay, so the biggest message here when it comes to ethical issues, when it comes to corporate social responsibility, training does have a key impact, and I'm telling you that from experience, right? I've undergone some different trainings, and it really changed my outlook, and it's given me some tools to be able to deal with. Because I'll tell you, when an ethic situation comes in, sometimes it just comes in, you're blindsided, and then you have to make a decision, based on that. And if you're not aware that what has happened, if you don't have the skills or you don't have the insights as to how to deal with it, it puts you in a very compromising position. And so that here, look at, signs of unethical behavior in your organization, failure to establish written codes of ethics. I've been in enough companies now where I've seen that everywhere I've been, but in Ontario and Alberta, it's not like I've worked outside of the country. All the organizations that I've worked in had written code of ethics, so where you stood, right? And that there's not anything like a quick fix solution because they're complex. So you need to understand that. And then there's some people or organizations that are unwilling to take an ethical stand because there's, in some cases, major financial costs to deal with. So those are the kind of things to look at, and again, consideration of ethics solely as a legal issue. It doesn't work that way. You can have an organization that abides by the law, but from a moral standpoint is not really looking after things. Just a pulp man. They'll say, okay, that in your effluent, you're regulated that you'll be so many, let's say, parts per billion of mercury, right? And they'll say, hey, we're, the limit is 10, say. Okay, we're at 10, and we're doing fine, we're following the law. But it turns out that small amount of mercury goes downstream, and people are drinking that water, and it's going into the water table, and people are getting sick because of it. All right, so morally, it's not right. From an ethical, a legal point of view, oh well, yeah, we're following the law, right? So those are the kind of things that you need to look at. But again, you need to start responding to the consumer, because sometimes the demands of the shareholders, they're really just looking for profit, right? They've made an investment and they want returns. So that brings us into corporate social responsibility, and this slide is really important. Understand what social obligations are about. Business firm engages to meet economic and legal responsibilities, and social responsiveness, all right, is a firm that engages in social actions in response to some popular social need. And what it comes down to, it comes down to the consumers, the customers. There's much more greater awareness around what's happening in the world, and they're putting more emphasis on corporate social responsibility, so that there's people who will not go into a coffee boutique if they don't see a sign on the wall that says, hey, we respect fair trade, because what does fair trade do? It makes sure that the coffee bean farmers, the country that it comes from, are well looked after in terms of economically, health-wise, safety-wise, and then that way it makes for a better world. And that's all coming through their triple bottom line and all considerations in terms of economic, social, technological, political, and legal. So that's really important. But then you have different organizations that are in different places on this range or spectrum. You can have the obstructionists where they have a disregard for social responsibility. And then on the other end, you've got proactive approach, very strong commitment to social responsibility, and then some in the middle. So what I did was, and I want you to look at this piece, but we're running out of time and I'm trying to make a little bit of time here. The whole idea is, okay, so I'm going to cover those. The whole idea, why do you need to be socially responsible? It pays. You'll be successful. It's profitable. You'll build prosperity, and everybody will win. So it builds a good reputation for a company. Do you know how important that is in terms of global branding in today's world? That you have a good reputation. It brings business in. It gives you perceived value where you can actually up your prices because you're seen as a good corporate citizen, and people trust that you have quality in your product and based for the right reasons. This good reputation, that you have, it will increase your business. You'll get more people that want to deal with you, and an improved ability to obtain resources. Because if a country that you want to get into sees you and making application to come in and set up shop as a global player, and in some cases to be able to secure their raw materials, well, because you're a good corporate citizen, they'll have checked you out and say, yeah, these are the kind of companies that we want to let into our countries because they're going to do well for our people, and we're going to build up our health and wellness. We're going to build up our quality of life, and we're going to prosper because of this, and we're not going to be exploited, right? And then at the end of the day, it's about profit. So just understand, okay, obstructionist stance, that's, on the left-hand side of what you've seen. Corporation that takes a stance may cross an ethical or legal line, say like dumping hazardous material in a local landfill and covering it up, right? And deny anything that they did wrong. The defensive stance, now we're getting into companies, I think the cigarette companies are the best example in that area. They're following the law, right? They follow the law, but they know that there's some health risks, to use in their product, and they deal with that really from a public relations spin to kind of try to downplay it, right? So they're not quite, in the game when it comes to, being a good corporate, social responsible organization. And then you have the accommodative stance, and I think the best example that I could find was British Petroleum, because they are really tight in the community. They really want to improve, their footprint in extracting gas and oil, and they want to help companies, but guess what? There's still a carbon footprint involved. There's still there's still climate change that we have to deal with. Okay, so they're doing their best, but they haven't totally looked into alternative means and getting into a different business where they could really improve things from an environmental point of view. And then here's one of my favorites. All right, the proactive stance. The Van City is a credit union. It's in Vancouver, naturally, Van City. And it's probably one of the best examples of a Canadian organization that has really taken on and they walk, talk, and do social responsibility. It's a priority, and they have all kinds of programs for fledgling minorities trying to set up businesses, to giving a better interest rate on an electric vehicle, those kind of things. So they're really. And not only that, can't remember one of the board members' names, but she's known now worldwide about corporate social responsibility, and goes around talking about what Van City has done and what corporate social responsibility really means. So have a look at this, like go onto their website and find out. And the whole idea is that it does pay, right? It improves profit. It improves, it improves prosperity in the communities that they're in. And you take a look at that in terms of how do you, it's a means to customer loyalty. And, I've always said that, customer satisfaction that's just to get in the game, and if a customer sees something a little better, they'll leave your organization because, they might have, a few other added value things from a competitor. But when it comes to keeping them loyal, keeping them there, and understanding the customer lifetime value of keeping them there, and understanding the implications of bringing that into being the service profit chain, where you invest in your employees, they make your customers happy. They're so happy, those customers, that they stay around, and then they start bragging about you. Well, that's what this customer loyalty ladder is all about. And customer loyalty you can take to the bank, right? So, it starts off with who's out there, the suspects that you could encourage to bring in as a customer. And they're mainly, leads. And then when you look at those leads, you start qualifying those leads, and now they become potential customers. They're prospects, right? And then you start working those prospects, and then you create, the relationship, and you gain customers. But the whole idea now is to keep those customers coming back, repeat buyers when they become clients, and then they're so happy with you, and because you've brought them so much value, and you're wowing them every day with your service, that they become your champions, your advocates. They start telling the whole world, what a great company that you belong to, and here are the great advantages of doing business with you. So I wanted you to know that. Now I'm going to get into just sustainability itself, because corporate social responsibility really drives sustainability. And I want you to kind of keep this thought in your head, and it's all about being a good ancestor. And the whole idea is that how can you look to the future and see, future generations enjoying the same blessings that we have today. And take water, for instance. I think water is between pure, clean water, and soft water, I guess, or whatever, is between 1% and 3% of all the water in the world. So it's a limited quantity. It's scarce. And the thing, how do we preserve that? Because, in today's world, a lot of wars are about oil. In future generations, the wars are going to be about water, right? And clean air and those kind of things. And then I just wanted to bring your attention to, mainly Aboriginal groups or First Nation groups in many areas of the world, we're really connected to nature and understood that. And I'll talk about the Iroquois in Canada and the northern US. When their elders got together to make a decision about what they were going to do, they would always look 7 generations beyond them to see if that was a good decision. Just think if we could bring that type of mindset into how we do business in today's world and how we could make a better world. Okay, so I've given you some stuff around, that you could use in participation 12B. So your group will have to brainstorm types of social and ethical issues facing a business today, and that will give you a better awareness. And the whole idea is that if you manage your social issues, it means you're doing good corporate governance. And corporate governance is all about accountability and transparency, right? That's what it's all about. And you do that through policies, and you do that through training. And what'll happen is you'll get better financial results. The firm will be seen as a good corporate citizen, and it all translates into better sales, better expense management, all that. And there's different types of corporate governance in terms of market-based, family-based, bank-based, government-affiliated pieces. I want you to understand that. But again, it's all about transparency and accountability. And the reason why I keep on talking about this is because I want to talk about Enron. So in the late 90s and the early 2000s, Enron was the darling corporation on the stock market. there was no end to their success. They were growing leaps and bounds. They were showing very high profits. They were showing to be a great investment. A lot of Americans, including their employees at Enron, invested in stocks as part of their 401k, and that's their retirement funds. Okay, so Enron got a little bit greedy, and what they did was they started doing illegal things in a lot of cases. And I won't get into the piece of it, but I just want you to see that, look at how they were growing, and all of a sudden their financial house of cards fell, and it all fell apart. And all these people lost all that money, all that value that was created through Enron on their 401ks, and it turned out to be an absolute disaster in U.S. economic history. And out of that came this Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. And what the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, it was related towards financial management and accounting standards, and what it meant was there was much more stringent and exhaustive reporting on what had to be done. And because of that, smaller businesses were really penalized because they didn't have the capabilities to do what the large corporations could do. And we're still living under that Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and there's repercussions, from the U.S. all the way through. So that's where things could go. I wanted to give you a sense of, hey, if we don't keep our house in order and we don't manage, the way, we don't manage, our ethics, and we don't, we're not good ancestors, there's going to be more Enrons come our way, and then that's not good. Okay, and I think where I'm at here is that, that with ethical issues, you're getting the bribery and corruption and everything else, and what you can do is, there's, when you're looking at a particular country that you may want to go into, you can go to international information and find a map and a rating on different countries to see where they stand in the ethical ratings, and so that that may affect your decisions on which countries you want to go into, because you may have less problems, with making business decisions in those environments. Okay, I just wanted to identify this Mr. Kaufman here. He came up with this, and it's came out of the 16th century, but this honorable merchant, and to be looked at as an honorable merchant, you have a good understanding of other cultures, because you need to understand, where do you sit, and then what's acceptable and not acceptable, and what's acceptable to yourself, your value set, and your organization's value set, and your country's value set, to be able to do good business in the world. Dedicated research and planning to really, understand what you're getting into, and then scrupulous honesty to really be straight up and get these things done. So I will leave you with that. That's it for topic 12, and I'm hoping that you'll have a look at everything that's highlighted in these commentary presentations, from topic 9 to 12. And that will really kind of point you in the right direction. And also, I've been posting these webinars on the YouTube channel as well, and I'll send you a link to this one when it comes up. Okay, but you can access this through Microsoft Teams as well. Okay, so any questions at all? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll leave it at that, and maintain your routines. Get the right amount of sleep. You're getting near the end of the term. You need your sleep. You need to be eating the right foods. Stay off the sugar. It's no good to write an exam after you've eaten 3 chocolate bars. It doesn't work for you. It'll screw up your brain. So those are the kind of things that it's physical and mental and emotional all together. Making you successful. So pace yourself. Okay, we'll talk to you later.